Good morning, YouTube. Read something online this morning that the FBI is now considering doing away with the 40 Smith & Wesson, going back to the 9mm. Now, when I got in a discussion with somebody this morning, somebody else that has not been shooting enough to have enough experience, but that's beside the point, is that they think that the biggest and the baddest handgun round will always win. And in theory, that's correct. The problem is there's a few little issues with that. One is if you get a compact pistol, subcompact pistol, and say, and don't be wrong, I have shot enough 45 ACP over the years. I've shot tens of thousands of 45 ACPs. I've owned several 45 ACPs. And the one thing I'll tell you is most people do not shoot the 45 ACP well. And the reason for that is they get sucked into the big, bad 45 ACP end-all be-all. And it is a great round, don't get me wrong. But the fact is they get sold on a compact or a small subcompact pistol, and they take it to the range and they shoot it, and they find that, one, they can't hit anything, which they usually blame on the gun, or the fact that they just don't have enough experience with a larger caliber round. And I think that's what the FBI is doing here. And I've seen it over the years where a new shooter, especially in law enforcement, gets handed a bigger caliber, big handgun, bam, 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 can't hit anything. A good example of this is when the 41 Magnum Model 58 Smith & Wesson came out. That was supposed to be the premier law enforcement, and if they'd followed the original plan, it would have worked. And there were two types of ammo for that. There was a really hot factory hunting load, and there was a police load. Most police departments that did try out the Model 58 didn't get the message that they needed to use a lighter, more manageable load, and they were finding officers could not qualify with their revolvers because they were used to either 357 or 38 Special. In most cases, 38 Special. And then they were handed a 41 Magnum, and they found they couldn't qualify with them. And that's the same as we have here. Now, for years, many have said the 9mm is a lousy round. Terrible round. And stacked up performance-wise against a 45, a 45 is going to beat it every day. The 40, it's getting so that the 40 and the 9mm are so close now that the only real difference is the diameter of the bullet. The velocity, the expansion, the penetration is so close. Yes, the 40 is a heavier bullet, and the heavier bullet is a good idea. But at the same time, are you really gaining anything over the 9mm? Yes and no, but this goes back to being able to shoot the handgun you have. I can tell you I've had enough 45s over the years, full-size, compact. This 9mm Smith & Wesson, this is not a huge pistol. This is certainly not a Beretta 92. This is not a bigger 9mm. This is an 8-round gun. It's an alloy frame, steel side. Sure, it's not as light as, say, like a Glock or some of these smaller guns. But I find that this gun I can shoot the most accurately with than any handgun I've owned in a semi-auto pistol, except for Browning High Power, also a 9mm. Accuracy, I would run rings around the Glocks I've shot that are usually in 45s or 40, a couple 1911s I've shot. This gun will run rings around it. Now why? Because it's a lighter round. You're not dealing with all the recoil of 45. And shot placement is more important. There's an old saying, been around as long as I've been in shooting, a hit with a 22 is better than a miss with a 44. If you take a 45 out and are not used to shooting it, and you start trying to dump rounds into a target, especially fast, your accuracy is going to suffer greatly. Now, another thing I've noticed, you notice I have a selection of bullets here in front of me. Okay, this is one of my favorite bullets. I hand-load these myself, and I hand-load these quite hot. This is a 357 Spear Gold Dot 158 grain. Now they call them the Spear Deep Curl. And this is a whole bunch of them that I've shot into wet newsprint. This one didn't expand. They all penetrated at least 14, 15 inches. And you can see how good of a bullet this is. Okay? These are some of my own cast hand loads. These are, 146 grain hollow points. Again, nice expansion. These will actually perform on par with these. They just don't have, this is not a copper bullet. They don't have the pedals. I don't know as far as terminal performance, the difference. I think these would perform better. But again, for a cast bullet, that's not bad. This old timer. Most people don't even know what this is. This is a 38 Special Hydra-Shock, not a Federal Hydra-Shock. I don't know if you can read this. Notice that stamping. Hydra-Shock 38 Special. This is a 125 grain bullet. This came out before Federal owned the company. Federal bought out Hydra-Shock. It was its own company for a time. And this is what that bullet does in wet newsprint. You see the traditional post. The old style post that you get with those Hydra-Shocks. That design has been around a long time. That's just a 30 special. Look at the expansion on that. Wet newsprint. These are what were called the old Scorpion, Hydra-Shock Scorpion rounds. It was a wad cutter, but it had a post in it. I've tried to get these to perform. This is the best I can get them to do. And this is probably my favorite 9mm. Now, the reason I'm pointing all these out is that this is a 9mm. This is just a 115 grain Remington. This is this box right here. 115 grain Remington jacketed hollow point. Not plus P. Not even a hot bullet. Probably, I think they advertise these around 1,100 feet per second. Look at the expansion on that. Look at the expansion. What do you notice? Okay? Out of a snub-nosed revolver, these, I've chronographed them. These are around 125, or 158 grain bullet, 1,100, maybe 1,150 feet per second. These out of, that's 4-inch Smith, about 1,100. Look at the expansion. Look at the comparison. Yes, this is a heavier bullet, but I've shot enough 125 grainers to know they do the same thing. Here's a 125 grain Hornady XTP. Look at the expansion compared to the 9mm. The reason I'm pointing this out, no one questions the 357 Magnum. No one. When it comes to performance, expansion, and penetration. The 9mm did almost as good, did better than the XTPs. And I've got them, I've had several of them. They all look just like this. Look at the size comparison. This 9mm, the lowly 9mm, look at the difference. Look how well that did against that Hornady XTP. This is just a cheap 100 round box. I can get these around $30 a box of 100 versus an XTP, one of Hornady's best. Now, I have not tried this yet. I'm going to eventually try this in expansion test. This is the 9mm Hornady Critical Defense. I do want to try this. But so far, this bullet here has surprised me. And I've seen a lot of tests on this bullet. This bullet competes very well with some of the more expensive ammo. But what I'm getting at is 9mm is not what it used to be. 9mm used to be a crappy round, be a lousy round, it was horrible, oh, it sucks, you can't do anything with it. The ammo has come up a long ways in the last 10, 15 years when it comes to 9mm. A long ways. It is not the lousy round it used to be. A lot of the problems you have 9mm is you hear people in the military using full metal jacket. Hardball ammo. Typical 9mm, it'll go in and go right out. Very good at over-penetration. That's not these bullets. That's not the old 9mm. Is it as good as a 45? Performance-wise, per bullet? No. But accuracy-wise, especially someone that doesn't get out and shoot all the time, the 9mm will win hands down. You can do better shooting with this gun, hands down, especially if you have to fire more than one round, if you have to get more rounds out. I'm not saying blast your rounds out as fast as possible, but accuracy-wise, a person will do better with a 9mm handgun than a 45 handgun in the same size. That is just the way it is because of the recoil. So, do I recommend 9mm? Yes, I do. If I could get a 45 that could shoot as good as this gun without the recoil, I'd own it. But when it comes, especially comes to smaller 9mm, the 9mm is more accurate. especially for younger and newer shooters that don't shoot all the time. So there you go, YouTube. That's my take on this, on the Caliber Wars. Have a good day.